Hello YouTube and Patreon, this is Nathan P. Butler, and this is our project update for the month of April 2019. I am recording this on April, April 25th. It all kind of blends together at this point. But April 25th, so not exactly a month from our last of these updates, which I believe I put up online around the 28th of March. Before we get into anything about new project information, what's been released, what's out there, that sort of thing, I do want to take a moment to thank those who are backers on Patreon. Again, Patreon supporters can go over to patreon.com/NathanPButler, pledge their support over there. If you do the $1 tier, that gets you a thanks in these episodes, officially in the credits at the end, but I also try to mention names here while the list is still manageable here. It'll also get you that thanks in a special Patreon thank you page in the second edition of A Saga on Home Video, my book, which will be coming out sometime in the near future. The first edition came out in 2017, second edition probably once episode 9 is on home video, in that gap between that and the next Star Wars film's home video release, whatever that may wind up being. We, of course, then also have the $5 tier. The $5 tier gets you access to exclusive audio commentaries available only through my Patreon. Those are audio commentaries I've recorded for the Clone Wars and other things, primarily the Clone Wars right now, 2 a month. And then if you pledge at that $10 level, then that gets you access to the exclusive Q&A video every single month, where you get to ask your questions, get them in the video, and know that you're going to be able to have a little bit more elaborate answers than I would usually be able to give on one of those fast mini Qs or mini Q&As. I would say mini Q, which is an educational term for something from the DBQ project. Not a mini Q, a mini Q&A. I just always leave off the and a for some reason. So, thank you very much to the Travelers Through the Butlerniverse. That's that $1 tier, folks. That includes Ben P. Stein, Candy Cabanas, Martin Dahl, Austin Pierce, Jeremiah Mustard, and S.W. Chris. Then to the denizens of the Butlerniverse, the $5 tier, folks, Jeff Ellis, Joey Zitzman, Stephen M., Sam Howard, Chris Morgan, Robert Medina, Bobby Craig, and Jason Hunt. And then also, of course, to the nobility of the Butlerniverse who have access to that Q&A. Those include Brian Snook, Jonathan Comper, Gary Sherwood, Benjamin Handelman, and Andrew Bettis. Yes, the rosters have been shifting around a little bit, so had to look on the MacBook just a little bit more than I normally would there. But thank you all very much for your support on Patreon. Again, it is patreon.com/NathanPButler for anyone who hasn't checked it out yet. So just kind of in general, what's going on, or what we can look back and say happened in April as far as effects on anything else. Well, it was kind of odd, because we had spring break. Yes! Finally, spring break. For those of you who are unaware, I teach online. I teach for a program in our county that serves all the high schools and middle schools in our entire county. So if they want to take courses online, they can take it through this state program called Georgia Virtual School, GAVS, we call it, or through us. And our program has just been growing and growing and growing and growing. Tons and tons and tons of students. Great word of mouth reports on how good the program is and all this kind of stuff. But it keeps us on our toes throughout the entire semester without much in the way of breaks. Like when a traditional teacher would say, okay, well, it's a holiday today or it's a weekend today, I don't have to do squat, or I can be grading stuff in lesson plans at home, which is more realistic. But I'm not interacting with the kids and the parents because it's my day. Yeah, not so much when it comes to online teaching, because typically, granted, there's no official hours on days like that, but you're still going to want to check just sort of out of your feeling of duty to your students, because when it's the weekend and they're not in school, or it's a holiday and they're not in school, that's when they're going to work the most a lot of times, and you want to make sure you're there to support them. So what essentially happened was, there was a realization after the first couple of years of me being part of this program. I was one of the first teachers full-time brought into it. One of the first 3. We were a group of 3 to start with. The realization was, if we don't actually basically order the teachers to take a break over spring break or Thanksgiving break and literally do not touch the system, just leave it the heck alone, tell the kids you won't be available and let it go. If we don't actually order you to do that, you're going to keep working, aren't you? Even if you're not really supposed to be. So we had quite a while there where people were just kind of leading to that point of burnout because we just wouldn't step away. So we, thanks to those orders, essentially, if you want to call it that, thanks to that policy, actually had a real break for spring break, which was bizarre, the days of not actually checking the system constantly, which gave us a chance for my wife and I to take little baby Cade to visit my family up in Indiana for the second time. So we spent a few days up there, got a chance to see them, which is something I usually only get to do maybe once or twice a year. All my family's up there. My wife's entire family is down here in Georgia. None of mine is, beyond her side of the family, if we're talking about sides of the family and everything like that. And then shortly thereafter, we were heading towards our anniversary. We've been married since 2013. We've been together since 2008. So we kind of sit back and say, okay, well, which anniversary are we going to celebrate how? Do we do the one in June, which is our wedding anniversary, or our anniversary of dating, which is April, where it just turned out, as we, are big hockey fans, hey, right before our anniversary, our favorite team, who didn't even make the playoffs this year, the Chicago Blackhawks, are going to be playing in Nashville, which is only about 4 hours away. We pass through there every time we take a trip up to visit my family. They're playing the Predators in Nashville for their last regular season game. In fact, it's the game that if Nashville wins it, they clinch the division, even though we know that the Blackhawks won't be able to go any further anyway. I'm like, interesting. Well, it turns out my wife has some friends from back in the day, a gentleman whose father and uncle, I believe, both used to play for the NHL. I believe they both actually played for the Blackhawks. One of whom, as sort of a part owner or whatever he is, has access to really good tickets pretty often, even when they're away games. So as a gift for our anniversary, basically they were like, hey, have some tickets right up front, right? Have some tickets basically in the third row. Was it the second row? Second or third row, it all blends together. It's the middle of the night. Here, so you can really see up close, as long as, you're not afraid of the possibility of having a puck go through or go over or something. So we got a chance to go to what was her, she's gone to a ton of NHL games. It was my second NHL game after one years ago with the Thrashers back when they were still in Atlanta. And my third professional hockey game of any kind, because I went to see a Thunderbolts game, which is AHL, I think, like minor league hockey, in my hometown. It's like their second time or whatever of having a hockey team, because the Icemen that were there before aren't around anymore. So, not that we can say that much, because, Atlanta had 3 teams and they're all gone. We got a chance to do that. So it was actually our first trip with my sister-in-law watching the baby overnight. And we went up there and we stayed right there at the nice hotel right there next to the arena. Just walked over, went to the game, just a fun time. But that meant that most of my spring break was sucked up by travel. And then we jumped back into work again. And you may recall that I think in the last video I mentioned how, the last of these updates, how I had been ill, but I was getting better. And my wife was the one who was being ill. Yeah, not so much. I slipped right back into being ill. I was actually sick right up until really we got to Indiana, which is why I think some of it was sinus allergy stuff. And I got back and I was feeling better. She's still kind of under the weather. Baby has been fine. He was, we thought he was sick for a couple days. He was just teething. So we had kind of a rough week or so of health stuff. She's still a little bit ill right now, so a week for me, at least, a little bit longer for her. Me injuring my shoulder, or finally getting to the point where my shoulder injury from constantly lifting the baby and everything, I guess, at some point I messed it up, going in and finally getting it checked to get an MRI and that sort of thing. Coupled with spring break and everything else, made for a month that you would think would not have been very productive at all. And instead, actually more got out than I really even thought about. I guess because I finally had a chance to sit back without monitoring the system for a week, that on some of those days where we were actually around during spring break, I was able to edit a bunch of stuff that I had recorded previously, or record a bunch of stuff and then had the time to edit. So kind of surprised that as crazy as April was, a lot of stuff got in there. And we got to see a freaking Blackhawks game. I got to see my favorite player, Alex DeBrincat, actually play. And my wife's favorite player, Jonathan Toews, who also tossed a puck over to her. So we now have a puck, although with a Predators logo on it. But still, a puck from Jonathan Toews. Anyway, so all that being said, in this apparently productive, more productive than I ever would have thought, April, what did we have? Or at least in the months since the last of these videos. On Patreon, of course, we have those audio commentaries, and the audio commentary for April 1st was The Deserter, the Clone Wars The Deserter. That's followed up on April 15th by Lightsaber Lost. That will be followed up soon, but it's not May 1st yet, by the launch, of course, of the Mandalorian arc, the first Mandalorian arc, which will be really cool, and that'll take us up into June, and I'm planning very soon to record the next batch of episodes. All the ones for the Mandalorian arc are already recorded, and yes, I go off on some tangents, and yes, Voyage of Temptation draws a lot of fun, I think, just because it's one of my favorite episodes, or at least has some of my favorite character moments of the pre-time jump Clone Wars stuff. So those will be a treat coming up. The Deserter and Lightsaber Lost both released in April. We also had the exclusive Q&A, number 16, for the Nobility of the Butler Universe, released on April 8th. So all of that released over on Patreon. Podcast-wise, we didn't have any new episodes of Star Wars Beyond the Films yet. Mark and I haven't had a chance to record again recently. But we did have 2 episodes, one released and one recorded, produced for Cloud City Casino. So back on April 9th, we had an episode released, which was episode number 88. I was looking for the title here. It's episode 88, Calling for Backup Before Celebration, and it's basically me and Michael and Matthew Bradley Tershi, if I'm saying your name right, or Shrieky, I think, right? Am I saying it right now? Matthew, from Sequelcast 2, talking about the updates that have been made to Battlefront 2, and then getting into a lot of the newer Star Wars gaming news. And then just recently, here in the last few days, we have recorded another episode of Cloud City Casino, which will be number 89, which is primarily post-celebration stuff, talking about celebration stuff with Michael, who was there with his wife. That one isn't up yet. It may be out by the time this episode of the Project Updates is edited and uploaded, but look out for that. But we did have 88 released since the last update. And then, of course, the bulk of my stuff is going to be coming through the YouTube channel. So we started out April with a pair of episodes for my Nate's Favorite Deck Building Games series within 2 different sub-series. We had the last of my episodes for Marvel Legendary. Not because the Legendary deck building game is ending, but just because we're done. Me and my wife are just done with it because it's just, at this point, it's just unwieldy. There's way too much to it, and we just weren't playing it anymore. So I sold that stuff off, but not before covering in that last episode the brand new Venom expansion for Marvel Legendary. Then I also covered the Year 5 Collector's Edition for Ascension, which includes a couple of the big sets and then promo cards for that particular year, as was the case with the previous 4. In that case, also sort of a, not a rant, I would say, but sort of a mini buyer beware type of note in why it took so long, and the fact that recently Stoneblade Entertainment's products through Ultra Pro, at least twice in recent memory for me, have delayed things because they had faulty products. In one case, misprinted cards. In that case, an entire set of cards completely missing from the package. And what to do if you find yourself in the same situation with one of those Ultra Pro products, because there's a lot of hoops to jump through to actually get that stuff replaced. It's, in theory, a straightforward process, but doesn't wind up working out that way sometimes. Then, of course, we dove into X-Wing for 2nd edition with their new enormous wave that introduced the Galactic Republic and the Separatist, or the Separatist Alliance, into X-Wing. So we took a look at Servants of Strife. Okay? We took a look at Guardians of the Republic, which are the 2 sort of starter packs that have 3 ships each. One is the Delta 7 and some Torrent starfighters, and then the other is basically a couple of droid starfighters and the soulless one, Grievous's ship, essentially. Then we took a look at the Sith Infiltrator expansion pack. We took a look at the Vulture Droid expansion pack and the Delta 7 expansion pack, which mirrored ships in those bigger sets I just mentioned. The reissued ARC 170 pack, which is for the Republic, not for the Rebel Alliance this time. The TIE Striker, and the newest release of the Z95 AF4 Headhunter. So all the stuff in that wave, a huge wave, we looked at every piece of it. With the exception of little plastic dial protectors. I never buy the dial protectors for those. Then for Star Wars Legion, We had recently seen Jyn Erso in the Rebel Pathfinder, so no surprise, this month finally brought us director Orson Krennic and the Death Troopers, and we looked at both of those 2 expansion packs for Legion. At mid-month, I launched 2 more episodes of the mini Q&A, episodes 12 and 13, and then that was followed by a blitz of From the Star Wars Home Video Library. We had episode 195 that looked at the Hong Kong Cantonese dubbed VCD of The Phantom Menace and the subtitled VCDs of Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. That was episode number 195. We had episode number 196, which looked at a Greek VHS release in full screen of The Phantom Menace. Episode 48.1, just a supplemental one, where we looked at the long box packaging for Star Wars A Musical Journey. Like, what is that? It's a DVD that's included in the Revenge of the Sith soundtrack. So really the long box for the soundtrack. But I don't care about the soundtrack. I care about the DVD. We took a look at some more of the club packaging, this time from 2008 in episode 197. We looked at club packaging for the full-screen version of The Phantom Menace and the film-specific type for Attack of the Clones. And we took a look in episode number 198 at the UK VHS versions, full-screen and widescreen, of the original trilogy from the UK, I think I just said UK twice, from 1994 that were donated to the show by Ricky Ray. This was a special, as I've learned since, I had some questions at the time, a special PAL remastering before the THX remastered editions were released that is distinct from the THX remastered editions. Then on April 16th, I finally, after figuring out how to do the narration stuff on this for pre-recorded video, finally got that video out that I had recorded a while back for Jedi Challenges. So if you're interested in the Jedi Challenges AR, augmented reality game, I finally got a new video out that talks about the updates they've made to the game since the stuff early on, like the Last Jedi content, the AR chess game that doesn't require the gear, or the multiplayer modes, and the Dark Side expansion, and took a look at the really cool Kylo Ren lightsaber controller limited edition item that was released. So finally got that out. That was then followed up on April 19th by the 14th of the mini Q&A episodes. So that's the one to put questions on now, if you want to put questions in for a new mini Q&A. Check out the one marked number 14, at least as of the time I'm recording this. And then I got back into another of the Kickstarter things to take a look at a product, all of its contents, and how it fit in with a Kickstarter campaign. This time as the first game that I'm going to be looking at from All or Nothing Productions over in the UK, which was the first edition or first printing of Gloom of Kilforth. We'll also in the near future be taking a look at the second edition of Gloom of Kilforth with its expansions, which are, let's see, Encounters, Dark Gloom, and Pimp My Gloom. We're also going to be taking a look at 1066 Tears for Many Mothers, which is another one from All or Nothing, and then eventually, once they are released, we'll be taking a look at Lifeform, we'll be taking a look at Shadows of Kilforth, and so on. So a lot of good stuff coming from them, but we took a look at the first edition of Gloom of Kilforth this month, just a few days ago as of this recording. So way more stuff finally released than I actually expected for the month of April, primarily through YouTube. As far as other updates go, not a lot of new pictures taken for the book in the last month, but I plan to take some more in the near future, so that is proceeding slowly but surely. Speaking of other books, Greater Good, I think I forgot to mention this last time. So the new edition of Greater Good, my Telepaths and Time Travel novel, which is to be published by Archbeetle Press, Jim Wilder's Archbeetle Press, which will include, as a bonus, my novella that has been out of print for years, Echoes, which we'll call it, let's say it's a murder mystery. There's more to it than that, but saying so would give away what it is basically in the hands of the publisher now. All the text is ready to go. Greater Good, the introduction to Echoes in between, plus Echoes, all are off to him. And now also in the hands of the woman who's going to be the cover artist, who's putting together, all that kind of stuff, all the graphic layout for that sort of thing. So things are proceeding as far as that goes. We're trying to make sure there's plenty of time to get a chance for all the steps to actually be properly handled as far as that goes. So I'm not entirely sure of an actual release date yet, But as soon as I know, of course, you will know. But expect that to be a pretty cool one because it's kind of the definitive version of Greater Good that doesn't wash over certain aspects that we had changed before, like, oh, don't call it Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. Why? And tweaks a couple of minor things. And then you've got Echoes, which has received a pretty decent overhaul to fit better in for a modern audience, but also keeps the core story and most of the original wording and writing. So that should be pretty sweet to see as well. And you'll be able to get them both in the same book, because essentially Echoes is going to be a bonus story within Greater Good rather than being separate. So awesome. But those are all things that are kind of further in the future than most of the other stuff that I would mention here. As far as anything else that's coming soon, as I mentioned, we've already got a Cloud City Casino episode recorded. It may even be out by the time this is edited and released. I'll be doing more stuff for From the Star Wars Home Video Library soon when I get a chance to actually sit back and record. I've actually got one thing that's on its way to me in the mail right now, so as soon as that comes in, I'll start doing some more research on a couple of things. I actually have a Kickstarter product breakdown video actually already recorded for a game called Black Sonata. That one's recorded, hasn't been edited yet, but that'll be coming up soon. And then in the near future, maybe even tonight if there's time after I get done recording this, I'll be starting to do the recordings for those other ones from Hall or Nothing, like Gloom of Kilforth, 2nd edition, and 1066. So more stuff coming. And of course, we've got Patreon commentaries already lined up, ready to go. I'll be recording more soon. I think you're really going to get a kick out of the Mandalorian arc ones. I only go on a continuity rant really in the first one and get that out of the way while also talking about other aspects of the first one, which allows it to be a little bit more free-form as normal as we get into the other two. But in particular, Voyage of Temptation is one I just had a blast rewatching and recording that commentary, so I think that'll be kind of a special one. That one, again, I believe will be May 15th, because I believe it's 2 from now, and the next one's May 1st, so that'll be out there soon. With that, though, I will wrap this up. Again, thank you very much for your interest in the projects. Thank you very much for your support on Patreon to those who are involved over there, and I will see you in a month for another project update. Thank you.